2026 Canadian Open is in the books. A champion lifted the trophy. The crowds cheered, but the celebration feels hollow because the real story did not happen on the green. It happened behind closed doors. A fight is brewing. On one side, the PGA Tour's new boss, Brian Rolapp, is pushing a massive change, a two-tier system that starts in 2028. On the other side, a united group of Canada's best players, and they are furious. They are not just upset, they are threatening. They have looked the leadership in the eye and delivered a blunt warning. This would destroy us. But destroy what, exactly? What change is so terrifying that these stars are ready to go to war? The short answer is relevance. The Canadian Open is one of the oldest events in golf, but under this new plan, it faces a huge demotion. It could lose its top status. And if that happens, the best Canadians might not even be allowed to play in their own national open. Imagine that. A national championship where the local heroes are locked out. The sponsors would leave. The fans would turn away. The tournament could simply die. That is the nightmare these players are fighting to stop. We just watched a great tournament, but the clock is ticking. The changes are coming soon. And if this goes through, next year's event will look completely different. This is not a distant rumor. It is a current crisis happening right in front of us. Now, here is my honest take. I think the tour is playing with fire. They are risking a century of history just to protect their biggest money events. But maybe I am wrong. Do you think the Canadian stars are right to fight back? Or is the tour just making smart business moves? Drop your view in the comments. And if you want real golf news, not the fluff they feed you everywhere else, hit that subscribe button. To understand why these 6 Canadian stars are ready to go to war, you have to understand the weapon. The blueprint Brian Rolapp laid out earlier this year. He wants to split the PGA Tour into 2 distinct tiers. Think of the top tier as the exclusive club, 15 to 20 events per year, just the top 120 players, massive $20 million purses, all the TV attention, the sponsor dollars, the glory. Then there is the second tier, the rest of the schedule, lower prize money, less coverage, and here is the killer detail. Once you qualify for that top tier, you are effectively banned from playing in the second tier events. No exceptions. You earn your spot up top, you stay up top. For the Canadian Open, that is a knockout punch. Right now, it is not a top tier event. It sits firmly in that second bucket. So if this rule goes live, Canada's best players cannot represent their country on home soil. They are locked out of their own national championship. Picture what that looks like. A national open without the national heroes. The sponsors start asking hard questions. The broadcast ratings drop. The fans stay home. It stops being a celebration of Canadian golf. It becomes just another minor league stop, a ghost town with a trophy. And it gets worse. The top-tier events only allow 120 players. That means even fewer spots for young Canadians grinding for status. It kills the pipeline. It kills the dream for the next generation of talent. No pathway, no visibility, no home crowd to cheer them on. This is the reality these players woke up to. Their entire golfing identity, their connection to the fans, their legacy, all of it dangling over a cliff. A century of history reduced to a scheduling footnote, and they did not accept it quietly. As soon as that blueprint went public, the tension hit a boiling point. The backroom conversations started, the phone calls got heated, the threats were issued. But who actually stepped up to the plate? Who looked the CEO in the eye and told him this could destroy everything they built? And what exactly did they say that made the tour leadership stop and listen? Well, that list is shorter than you think, and their words will shock you. Nick Taylor was the first to break the silence, and he did not hold back. For those who know golf, Taylor is a Canadian hero. He won this very tournament in 2023. The images of him celebrating on the green are burned into the memory of every Canadian golf fan. He represents everything right about the sport: grit, passion, pride. So when he speaks, people listen. And his words were brutal. He sat down with reporters and called the plan exactly what it is: a disaster. He said, and I quote, "That would certainly suck." But he did not stop there. He went deeper. He explained that if the Canadian Open loses its top status, it will lose its identity. It will no longer be a true open championship. Canadians will not be able to earn their way in. The national pride will vanish. He even questioned the fundamental meaning of the event. How can you call it the Canadian Open if Canadians cannot play in it? That is the question that haunts every player on that list. Then Mackenzie Hughes stepped forward. If Taylor is the heart of the group, Hughes is the voice. The two-time PGA Tour winner is known for his sharp mind and sharper tongue. And when he heard Rolapp's announcement, he was not impressed. He called the announcement strange. He said Rolapp spoke for a long time but said very little of substance. It was a lot of talk without real clarity. For Hughes, that is worse than bad news. That is disrespect. He also pointed out the cold math behind the plan. 120 spots. That is the new limit for top events. And when you look at the current Canadian talent pool, it is obvious what happens next. The limited spots will go to the biggest names from the biggest markets. The young Canadians, the up-and-coming players from local tours, they will be pushed out. There will be no room for them. That is a brutal reality. And Hughes made sure everyone understood the stakes. But Taylor and Hughes are not the only ones speaking out. We are talking about a group of 6. Players who have earned their place on the tour through years of struggle. Players who bleed red and white. Corey Connors is another name on that list. He is one of the highest-ranked Canadians in the world. A consistent performer who has won multiple times on the PGA Tour. He does not say much in public. He lets his clubs do the talking. But behind the scenes, he has made his position crystal clear. He will not stand by while his national championship is torn apart. Then there is Adam Hadwin, a veteran of the tour, a winner. He has seen the game change in many ways over the years. But this feels different. This feels personal. Hadwin knows the value of the Canadian Open to his career. He knows it was a platform for him. And he knows that without it, the next generation will not get the same chance. Taylor Pendrith is another critical piece. He is a rising star. He won a big event recently and his momentum is building. For him, the Canadian Open is a stage, a chance to perform in front of his home crowd, to feel the energy of the Canadian fans. If that is taken away, his career loses a vital anchor. And finally, the godfather of Canadian golf, Mike Weir, the Masters champion, the legend. Weir is past his prime on the course, but his influence is massive. When he speaks, the tour listens. He has been quietly rallying the troops, making calls, offering advice, ensuring that this group stays united. These 6 players represent the past, present, and future of Canadian golf. They are not just fighting for themselves, they are fighting for the kids in Quebec, the teenagers in Ontario, the young pros in British Columbia. They are fighting for the entire Canadian golf ecosystem. And together, they made a decision. They would not just complain, they would act. They would take their message directly to the man with the power, Brian Rolapp. Now, you have to understand the dynamics here. Rolapp is not a golf traditionalist. He is a businessman, a media executive. He was brought in to maximize revenue, to make the PGA Tour more competitive against the money flooding in from elsewhere. His plan is cold, calculated, efficient. But efficiency does not care about history. Efficiency does not care about national pride. And that is where the collision happens. When these Canadian stars finally sat down with Rolapp, it was not a friendly chat. It was a confrontation, a reckoning. They walked into that room united. They presented their case. They explained the cultural significance. They talked about the fans, the sponsorship dollars, the media attention. But Rolapp was unmoved. He had his numbers, his projections, his timeline. That is when the mood shifted. The players stopped explaining. They started threatening. They told him that if this plan goes through, the Canadian Open will become a glorified minor league event. They told him that the sponsors will pull out, that the television ratings will plummet, that the entire economic argument for the event will collapse. But the most powerful threat was personal. They told him that they would use their voices to tear the plan apart, publicly, forcefully. They would go to the media. They would rally the fans. They would make the tour's decision a PR nightmare. That was the moment the tension peaked. One of the players looked him straight in the eye and delivered the line that has haunted Rolapp ever since. This would destroy us. Not just the tournament, not just the fans. Them, their careers, their legacy, their connection to the sport they love. And here is the truth. They were not exaggerating. For a golfer, there are certain moments that define a career. Winning a major is one. Representing your country in the Olympics is another. But playing in your national open, in front of your home fans, with the weight of history on your shoulders, that is sacred. Take that away, and what do you have? You have a job, a paycheck, a schedule. You lose the emotional connection that makes golf special. You lose the motivation that keeps you grinding through the tough weeks. That is what destroy us really means. It means losing the soul of the sport, becoming a mercenary, playing for money instead of meaning. And the players know this. Every single one of them has experienced the magic of the Canadian Open. The roar of the crowd when a Canadian makes a putt, the wave of emotion when the national anthem plays, the pride of wearing the maple leaf on your shirt. Rolapp does not understand that. He cannot understand that. He sees spreadsheets. They see history. But here is the complicated part. Rolapp is not wrong about the economics. The PGA Tour is under immense pressure. There is an endless stream of money flowing into rival leagues. The top players are demanding more. The sponsors are asking for bigger returns. Something has to change. The question is whether that change has to destroy the events that made the tour great in the first place. For the Canadians, the answer is a resounding no. They believe there is a middle ground, a way to protect the signature events without sacrificing the national opens, a way to reward the top players without locking out the locals. But Rolapp has not offered that middle ground. Not yet. Instead, he has offered a vision of the future that looks like the present for the top players, and like the past for everyone else. The haves and the have-nots. The rich events and the poor events. The stars and the spectators. And that is why this fight is not over. It is only beginning. The players have made their threat. They have made it clear. They are willing to fight. They are willing to go public. They are willing to make this messy. And Rolapp? He has not backed down. Not yet. But something shifted in that meeting. Something changed. The players did not walk out defeated. They walked out determined. They knew they had delivered a message that could not be ignored. They knew they had planted a seed of doubt in Rolapp's mind. And now the clock is ticking. The 2028 deadline is approaching. The tour has to finalize the plan. The players have to decide their next move, and the fans have to watch it all unfold. This is not just a golf story. This is a story about power, about money, about identity. It is a story about 6 players who refuse to let their national championship die. And honestly, that is why we should all be paying attention. Because if the Canadian Open can be destroyed, so can every other event that does not have a $20 million purse. The Byron Nelson, the Colonial, the John Deere Classic. Every tournament that built the tour's history is now at risk. That is the real crisis. Not just one event. The entire architecture of professional golf. The players know it, the fans know it. And now, finally, the leadership is starting to hear it. But hearing is not the same as listening. And listening is not the same as acting. So where does that leave us? Right here, watching, waiting, wondering. Will the Canadians win this fight? Will Rolapp find a compromise? Or will the Canadian Open become another victim of the money chase? We do not know the answer yet, but we are about to find out. And that is why you should stay tuned. This story is far from over. It is just getting started. Now, let me ask you again. Do you think these Canadian stars are right to fight? Or should they accept the new reality? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you want to follow every twist in this story. Because trust me, there are more twists coming. Rolapp has not made his final decision. The players have not made their final move. And somewhere in the middle, the future of the Canadian Open hangs in the balance. Let us make sure the voices of the fans are heard. Let us make sure the history of this great event is not erased. Let us make sure the next generation of Canadian golfers has a stage to shine. Because if we lose the Canadian Open, we lose more than a tournament. We lose a piece of golf history. And that is something none of us can afford.